the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
Just gone 9 o'clock in the morning and the sun is breaking through. It's going to be another warm day in this third heat wave of the English summer, and Norfolk has borne the brunt, if you like to use that expression. A lot of people enjoying it, a lot of furrowed brows as well though about the temperatures and people having trouble sleeping. But I've come to Fox's Grove to meet up with Chris Skinner. Chris never sleeps. Here he is. Hello, Chris.
Up early in the morning to avoid the worst of the heat, and it's like an early autumn here. We're standing under some trees, there's shafts of sunlight coming through the woodland, and there's leaves dropping off the trees because all the trees around us are actually under stress, and you can see on the woodland floor it's just scattered with leaves. And over there under that introduced species, the horse chestnut tree there, it's just brown, a couple of inches deep. So really unusual weather. But I like to sort of use the change of the seasons to come and visit again, because we were in here perhaps a couple of months ago enjoying the fantastic display of bluebells. And what I love to do is, because when wildflowers are fully out in bloom, it's such an attractive sight, and it kind of captures all the attention at that particular time of the year. But I live with them here on the farm year in, year out, so it's always nice to kind of revisit and just see how they alter through the seasons. And you can see there's a shaft of sunlight right beside us here. Just as we got out of the truck, there was one of our woodland butterflies and one of the stinging nettles here. Oh, look! Just there, right in front of us, on the leaf there, speckled wood.
Oh, that's a beauty again, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, some previous years we've had hell and all trouble to find them, and there it is.
That's an accidental. Oh, there it goes. Rats sniffing the air, but he wasn't to blame, and it's landed right on the subject we're going to talk about just for a few minutes. And it's kind of that change. Remember, this was a glorious blue colour, deep blue. The leaves of the bluebells were flat on the ground. They'd been out in flower for close on a month. And now all that's left, the leaves have gone, been reabsorbed into the woodland floor, are these tall paper-like stalks, probably, well, I've got down on my knees for this, probably 18 inches tall, this one. And when the bluebells are in flower, the little bells, hence the name of them, they hang downwards, usually all on one side of the plant. Spanish bluebells have the flowers all the way round, a different species altogether, but this is our British native, and you can see it's just a fantastic sight in front of us. There's probably, just in a couple of square yards, probably 100 stems, almost snow white, just slightly creamy. But after they've finished flowering, where the flowers were, if they've been pollinated, the little cups, the sepals that surround the flower, the petals will drop off onto the floor, they turn upwards, and the seeds start to develop in these little white cups. And this is the time of the year, perhaps for the plant itself, this is perhaps the most important time, which is really strange because you think the flowering time is. But what now happens is, if I take one of the stems like that and just tap it upside down on my hand, an amazing thing happens.
Dozens and dozens of little black seeds.
Look, shiny black seeds. What we got there, a good 30 seeds from that single flower head. And why I think it's important is this is the future generation. So in a way, the bulb that's still down in the soil has done its job. Hopefully it's gathered enough nutrition to come into flower again next year in 2026. But this is the crucial bit, because these little cups hold the seeds. Pheasants absolutely love them, so if they're still in the little upright seed pods, pheasants will come along and peck the seeds out. Obviously lots get dropped onto the ground. Then we have autumn, the leaves drop on the ground and cover up the seeds. Then we have the rains come, and once you get into December and January, the strange thing happens. These seeds germinate at that time of the year when we're all tucked up in our bed and you've got the long nights and the short days. That's the time of year that they germinate, and if we move the leaf litter in January, February, just a little bit, you'll see these tiny black seeds with what looks like grass coming out of them, just a single little green shoot.
So all the old leaves here, the spent leaves,
Yes.
they provide like a duvet.
Exactly that. But the strange thing is, if I brought a spade, and I haven't done, and we dug down at the bottom of one of these plants, there's a clump there of about 6 or 7 altogether. That would be just a clump of bulbs, and the bulbs can be 8, 9, 10, 12 inches deep, some even deeper. But how did they get down there? Is it because the leaf litter builds up annually? Because this display on this sharp slope here that we're looking at in Fox's Grove, quite a famous piece of woodland for its bluebells, it's just pure gravel. But how did the bulbs get down there? And the secret is, I had to learn about this years ago, bluebell bulbs, rather like crocus bulbs, have special roots on. They're called retractile roots. So they actually pull the bulb down into the soil each year, deeper and deeper and deeper. And of course, that's where the moisture is. That's also where they're protected, because when you've had a dry spring like this, although we're on a south slope here, and sharp sand underneath, it was a glorious display of bluebells. So these all drop on the ground, and I'll spread them back onto the leaf litter there. And that's the beginning of the next generation. But the existing bulbs are still there and remain there year in, year out. So it's a kind of perpetual display, and that's the wonderful thing about nature. It replicates itself. Summer, of course, is the season of renewal and sort of invigorating everything, but the seeds at the moment are dormant, and yet there's that potential there for them to germinate and provide a display in the future, together with the bulbs, which many of which are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. So, and probably even older than that. It's really difficult to age the bulbs and how they got down there, but those retractile roots are hugely important. About just as they dry at the end of the summer and the bulb becomes dormant but it's still active, the roots contract and just pull very gently over a long period of time, pull the bulbs into the soil. Just nature just makes you draw drops sometimes with astonishment, and this is just the remnants. But it's easy to think it's all kind of over, and yet it's just beginning. It's this cycle which is, the circle of nature, we call it, and it's absolutely wonderful to come back and then to see the results of those flowers and how the next generation is formed and born. And then they've been here since I was a child, 70 years, because it's just too steep to plough these slopes, and so it's remained as woodland. These are old river cliffs actually, and just amazing sight. So there we are, lovely way to start the podcast, because it gives you hope for the future, that life carries on despite what we do and throw at it. And although we're drought stricken here at the moment, it's really rewarding to come back and see things like that normally never grab your attention.
Well, these bluebell plants in their finery in the spring, but for the rest of the year they provide interest, and at this time of the year as well they're sort of a sandy colour, and it looks almost like a Victorian lady has pressed them between the pages of her book.
Exactly that. Look at that. But the future is there in the seeds.
Hundreds and thousands of seeds.
Absolutely, all over the woodland floor. It's just blackened. So sometimes the pheasants eat the seeds and then fly off and go to roost in trees nearby, and that's how the display spreads itself. Any animals walking past and nudging these as well.
Like terriers?
Yes, like terrier. The rat is with us, and he's just gently nosing around in there, just inspecting the odd rabbit hole. He's been very quiet and discreet this morning. Look at this, here he comes.
I've already had a lick on the nose this morning.
Oh, well done. Yes, that wasn't from me, I trust, no.
Oh. Plenty more to come on the Countryside podcast this week as we tour around High Ash Farm just outside Norwich, and lots of questions as well on emails, which we'll get to later.
Yes, we will. We're overwhelmed with questions.
Chris is now wading into the undergrowth here. On the verge of one of the fields here. This looks like a drainage ditch. We've got some horses as well in the distance here. Not far from the main road. Oh, and you've just picked me a flower. That's lovely.
This is called large bindweed, and until recently, till modern agricultural herbicides came into use in the 1940s and 50s, soon be 100 years ago, this was quite a problem in fields. It would grow up the cereal stems, always curl around the stems, hence bindweed, in a kind of anti-clockwise direction, always that way. You can see the little turn of the plant as it comes up, and at this time of the year it comes into flower.
I shouldn't think it was very popular in those days, was it?
It's still a problem if in organic food production.
Oh, wow, it's really wound itself like a helix.
Yes, look, it's if it touches something, the little growing stem, which can be, wait for it, 15, 20 feet tall. It goes right up into the top of hedges and can decorate a hedge with these large bell-shaped white flowers. And it's also got another name, although it's large bindweed. It's also called bellbine. Some lovely names just because of the shape. If you hang it upside down, it just looks like a church bell hanging there, and it's really, really beautiful. So it looks as though you look down into the hedge, and on the other side of the field there, the whole hedge bank is white with those large bellbine flowers.
I can see them all here now.
No, that's a different species we're looking at altogether. Still bindweed, but it's field bindweed. And so it's tiny in comparison to this great fellow.
I can see the larger ones down in the ditch.
Yes, I wasn't going to go down there because it's full of stinging nettles as well. And I do lots of things for the podcast, but I draw the line at being in water and getting stung by nettles. But really extraordinarily beautiful, and one of those plants that is so easy to ignore. So the little stems, as they grow, and they can grow 2, 3, 4 inches in a day, they're pretty rapid at growing, always anti-clockwise. You can see it's wound itself around the stem, so when the tip touches something, it responds by curling itself round whatever it's touching, and that's one of those things I had to learn about in biology at school. I never thought I'd come to be using them. They're responses to a stimuli for plants are called tropisms. So hydrotropism, the roots will go and find water, and this particular one, which sweet peas have in your garden as well, it's called a thigmotropism. Thigma is Latin for touch, so it's a responding to a touch, and it will curl itself round.
I've got a grapevine in the garden, and that will find anything and wrap itself round.
That's exactly the same response of a plant to a stimuli. So the little stems are equipped with little touch mechanism, and they will curl themselves round. But it's really interesting to see in the northern hemisphere it always goes anti-clockwise like that, the opposite way to the clock hands go round. But it's always kind of overlooked, and because it was in the past such a pest. And this little one that you picked out here has often got pink stripes in it. It's almost pure white here, and the whole hedgerow. Oh, there's one with pink on it, just opening up. Very nice.
Pink.
Look, yes, look at that.
On the underside.
Kind of candy stripes on the underside, and quite often they're candy striped on the inside of the little bell-shaped flowers. This is exactly the same. It's a very close relative. This is called field bindweed, much smaller, but nevertheless really beautiful, and it's one of those plants you can see the stem.
It's gone right round several stalks of grass
yeah,
here.
Oh, it's gathered the stalks of grass together to give it some stability, because it will then produce the seeds way up at the top, and the little flowers that are yet to open are bright pink, so really beautiful. And you can see the leading part of the plant coming up about 18-24 inches high. There it is, curling its way round, not in the clockwise direction, but always anti-clockwise.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, absolutely stunning.
Wouldn't be beautiful if that was my wheat, though.
This is the whole problem, and modern agricultural herbicides, pre-emergent or post-emergent, are very effective at controlling plants like this, because it just has such a dramatic effect on the crop you're trying to grow. And this is where it sort of begs the question, when is a weed a weed and when it's a wildflower? And a lot of people think that a wildflower is something grows where it should be, and a weed is where it's growing in the wrong place, if you like, and yet you can be talking about the same flower in two situations. But it's on a hedge bank here, it's doing no harm whatsoever, and it's another one of those midsummer flowers. Mid-July comes into flower right through until September in both the large bellbine, the large flower that we looked at, and this field bindweed here. But the interesting thing about these, Matthew, is they stay open at night. So there's a few moth species that specialise in these deep trumpet flowers. You need a long proboscis, and the convolvulus hawk moth is a specialist in coming in there, and they don't have a perfume, strangely, but they have a lot of nectar right at the base down there, and the little moth will come on, land on the petals, and put its proboscis right down past the stigma there where the pollen is, right down into the base, and that's where the nectar is, and it then drinks the sap from there, the nectar, and flies off and lays its eggs. So it's quite an important species for a lot of our butterfly and moth species. And just as we were talking, a hoverfly came in on one of the flowers nearby. But when you look, the whole hedgerow here is white. It looks as though the countryside, and I mentioned it in the spring when the hawthorn was in flower, all the trees were beautifully creamy white, and I said then, and I can say it again now, that it looks as though the Norfolk countryside is dressed up, ready to go to a wedding.
We've waded out into a grass field here with everything coming up to almost waist height, and some plants even bigger as well, which I think you're going to tell us about.
Yes, Matthew. We have to sort of go at great speed to try and keep pace with the changes in the Norfolk countryside and the flowering plants that we like to visit and enjoy, and just kind of celebrate, really. And this is the smallest field on the farm. It's just 1.5 acres, and it's the corner of a very large 30-acre field with a stream running down the side. So it never got bulldozed in because the stream constantly runs. There's chalk, very shallow, just underneath where we're standing, and on the far end of the field over there is a chalk quarry, and we call that field the chalk pit field appropriately. That was dug in the 16, 17 and 1800s to mix with fine silica sand to make your mortar for all the houses, and also to correct acidity in the soil. So it's quite high pH soil here. This one has been left, this particular field. The grasses are just about finished flowering, and I noticed rat walked past us just now, and he's over there, his back was covered in grass seed, so the seed is now beginning to drop off, and you can see it's so dry underneath. If somebody dropped a cigarette, or there's some broken glass here with the hot sunny conditions we've been having, this would just go up in a minute.
It's obviously something that you think about and you worry about.
I worry about it the whole time, and it's such a risk when you are in control of some land that you're responsible for it and maintaining it, and there's a lot of work necessary to keep it as it should be. But some of the plants growing here in flower, some have finished flowering, and this is a new one that we haven't really visited before. It's an umbellifer, and it's called hogweed, and it used to be gathered even in the early days of my childhood. In the early 1950s it was gathered and fed to the pigs on the farm. The farm was very diverse back then. There were chickens, some for meat for the house, obviously lots for eggs as well. The egg marketing board used to come collect the eggs every week. There were pigs, there was turkeys for the Christmas market as well. My father would kill them, dress them out and sell them, and they were very, very popular.
So you had to have a little bit of everything really to hedge against any problems.
That's right, and it wasn't until the 1970s till you started to specialise, and all those small enterprises just one by one faded away. The dairy cows went, the beef cattle all went, the pigs certainly went. Although I started off as a pig farmer, and I had some sows and grew up the progeny to porker weight, and some even bigger to what we call bacon weight back then, and they were all sold by weight in scores, which is a score is £20 in old money. So all this old terminology has all disappeared, and so fields like this, the old meadows on the farm, very much have disappeared. This one isn't grazed, but this hogweed has been allowed to grow up. It's quite a hard plant to actually grow. You'll see it on hedgerows and places like that, but very rarely in arable fields. And so we've got just over an acre of pure hogweed here, and this one's in flower. It's very geometrically arranged, and the little flowers are unusual. They're rather like orchid flowers when you look closely. The petals are so unequal. There's 3 or 4 petals one side and hardly any on the other side. So although it's in flower, you can just see there, it looks exactly like an orchid flower. Each flower head is about 4 inches across, flat, hence that family name, umbellifer.
Like an umbrella.
Yes, same family, unfortunately, as hemlock. And my daughter went gathering hogweed. I've told this story several times, but it always kind of brings back the childhood that my children had at the farm. She gathered what she thought was hogweed, and it was hemlock, and she fed it to her family of guinea pigs, and in the morning about 10:30, lunchtime, they were all deceased. So you do have to know your plants, because hemlock is also an umbellifer. It has this flat flower top, but then something unusual happens with the hogweed. Once it's finished flowering, it produces these flat paper-like seeds. You can see them. We're on just one plant. It's good 3 feet tall.
So this is after flowering?
Yes.
It's lots of little green pods.
Yes, all flattened, and it just reminds me of what I've been harvesting this last week of yellow rattle, because yellow rattle will spread itself by the wind, and these seeds dry over the summer and into autumn. And the plant is so rigid, it's a hollow stem, it's very rigid. Ladybirds and other insects will hibernate inside the hollow stem over the winter, so this won't be cut, it'll be left here. It's quite a good habitat, but each flower head, there's probably 250 of these flattened seeds, and they're flattened because when the winds blow, you can see the flat shape there, they can go off and recolonate this field, so that next year the whole thing will be plastered in them. There's probably 8,000 to 10,000 plants here. Rat has just seen a horse on the other side of the fence, and he set the whole lot running. Oh dear.
He lives with horses all the time.
He does, but he has not a good relationship with them. So he thinks he's herd master, and he's sent the whole lot off running across the field at great speed. So it's all right, Rat, they've all gone. Good, you've done a good job. Thank you. He's looking at me. So, if you had a camera, to take the photograph of the hogweed in flower, and then coming back and looking at the seed head here, it's really, really beautiful. You could make that into a birthday card or a Christmas card. Lots of people come out on the farm and using photography the whole time. I think we had a fly past yesterday, the red arrows, and people were filming and taking photographs of that from the farm there as they went over City Hall. You wait till I catch that dog. He always has to have the last word in every podcast that we do.
I mean, this hogweed, though, it's true that pigs really loved it.
Absolutely, yes. There's several species that are kind of related to pigs that used to grow on farms, and one is sow thistle. Sow is, of course, the female of the pigs that would have all the litter, and if you break a sow thistle off, we have perennial sow thistle here and annual sow thistle on the farm. Once you break a leaf off, just after a few seconds, a white latex sort of milk comes out of the stems, and it was thought that would improve the milk production of the sows. So hence sow thistle. And hogweed is the same. It was fed to pigs as well, both the bulls and the females, because it's so nutritious. And when you have dry summers like we've had, sometimes with the dairy herd, my father would send the farm workers out with a saw and cut the branches off the oak trees around the edge of the meadows so the cattle could graze the oak leaves. It was so dry, and the grass dried up sometimes. Particularly, I remember the summer of 1976, we had a big drought that year, combining in top gear right back then, and so hogweed was meant to have the same properties. So it's got a deep root with lots of iron in it, so you can see it's a tall plant. It's just laughing at the drought this year. It's unaffected, as are all the other plants here. Some are just about ready to shed their seed on the ground, but it's just lovely to catch up with these common plants, just sort of share a bit of their history. But I think the flowers are absolutely amazing with their uneven petals. Just looks very ragged. Remember, a few weeks ago we visited red ragged robin on one of the wet fields on the farm, close to the farm bog, we call it. The places I take you, it doesn't make me smile, and these are equally as beautiful as that red ragged robin, but just overlooked because nobody bothers to look.
Hogweed, but don't pick hemlock.
No.
Not for the pigs.
No.
Or the guinea pigs.
Or the guinea pigs, or the rabbits. It's an easy mistake to make.
We've arrived back at the farmyard here. It's a bustling scene of activity with all the horses being looked after. But Chris has done something rather odd. He's just crawled into an 8-foot digger bucket, which is standing here independently of its digger. A huge, great, hefty digger bucket, and he's actually inside. What's going on, Chris?
Matthew, it's just like the old days coming back to the farm, and I explained earlier that the farm was incredibly diverse with lots and lots of different enterprises, and it wasn't until the 1970s that you kind of had to specialise to survive. It was as simple as that. And so I became a large-scale cereal producer, annually producing well over 1,000 tonnes of cereals and 3,500 tonnes of sugar beet. It was a very large sugar beet quota, and it moved around, and just that was the whole farm existence, the whole farm income back then. And since then, virtually everything I was producing became a commodity. And because the soil types on High Ash Farm are so variable, sands, gravels, peats, clays, I've got the lot here, and it just became, it wasn't a high productivity farm, let's put it like that, just because of the slopes, the dry years that we had. And you soon learn your lesson. When you start losing money, that's no greater stimulus for a farmer to scratch his head and think, what am I going to do different? So the farmer's diversified. It's actually almost going back to what it was. There were working horses here when I was born. There are 60, 70 odd horses back here, but they're leisure horses, and that's helping to pay the huge costs that you get running a farm. It's just so expensive. And it goes right down to me being in this digger bucket. So last evening I went out, and with the digger bucket, it's got a razor sharp cutting edge. You can just see, and it's goes along low on the crop on the wildflower fields. We only do a small area, perhaps an acre or something close to that. And I drive along at about 8-9 miles an hour with the digger bucket just above the ground level. If you have it too low, you'll go through all the old ant hills that have come up, or the occasional molehill. You'll have soil in the bucket. If you go too high, you miss the crop that I'm after, because there's, out on the wildflower fields, there's a plant which is a parasite. And this seems really peculiar to do it. It's like harvesting mistletoe almost. It's called yellow rattle. It's also called the meadow maker's helper. And it is very valuable. And some of the plants growing here have a huge value. At the moment, the retail price for cowslip seed is well over £5,000 a kilo. Well, I don't know what that is for a ton, but the next one down is really hard. Very few people have learnt how to harvest it. And here I've got a sieve full, so I'm kneeling in the bucket, and I spend my sunny days out here. There's a bucket on the ground, and I'm just going to shake the sieve like this. And it's a bit, you can imagine, panning for gold. So what comes out of the bottom of the sieve is not the yellow rattle. The yellow rattle has seeds like little flat discs, and so you can look in the bottom. That is a meadow mix. It's got lady's bedstraw, white clover, red clover, tiny seeds, and some of the native grass species like sweet vernal grass, crested dog's tail, and that will be sold. But
that's not the rattle, though.
No, the rattle is now going to come. We've got the magic happening. I'll throw the top off now.
So the raw material's all in this bucket which you collected last night. You've just taken a pan full of it.
Yes, taken a little pan full, and now we give it another sieve, and the little husks of the rattle are coming up to the top of the sieve, and the magic will now start to happen. So I'm taking off all the disused portion, and you can just start to see the yellow rattle appearing. And don't laugh if you're a farmer, because this yellow rattle is around about, we're selling it for £200 per kilo. And when you think of a tonne of wheat that was growing, it's £160 a tonne this year. So this will go all over the UK. I've just done a 9-kilo bag for the Norfolk Wildlife Trust. That's an order that we had, and that's ready for delivery, and that will go on. Here comes the rattle.
These discs.
Yes, and it's very clean indeed. Just a little bit more shaking. And I'll shake that dog as well when I catch him. And there we are, it's just beginning to come. And then I have a little blower in the workshop, and I drop the seed. It's a specialist seed, a gravity seed separator. And you can see there's 2 seeds, most of which is yellow rattle, and the larger ones are sainfoin as well. That's another valuable plant.
So how do you distill it just to the yellow rattle then?
Well, just magic, and it's a trade secret, Matthew, so I'm not, it just takes patience and time, and I suppose you could call it a cottage industry, but it's a way of sort of bringing the income back into the farm, not from one source, but from lots and lots of different sources, and that's what diversification is. It's getting, you're still farming, but it's being diverse again, and it's absolutely changing.
There's some incredible insects in there.
Yes, when I harvest it, the bottom of the digger bucket is covered in moths, 6-spot bonnet moths mating and leaving.
Spiders and all sorts.
You just wouldn't believe it, and probably in the digger bucket, only having harvested a tiny bit, probably 1,000 or 2,000 ladybirds, giant green grasshoppers. I had one last week, it was 3 inches long, and once you stop and just look down in the sieve, the whole thing comes alive, and some of the insects in there are incredible. I have to look them up. Lots of tiny spiders and creatures in there.
Little beetles.
Yes, but it's a way of sustaining the farm, not through commodity production, because I didn't leave farming, it kind of left me, and I had to change it. It's kind of change or die or diversify. So and that's what's happening out in modern agriculture. It's beginning to split into two ways, sort of intensive food production and cattle production on a large scale, larger and larger. The dairy herd numbers in the UK are shrinking annually, but the number of cattle is actually increasing in places, and so that's the way it's going. And because this is a relatively small farm, it's a square mile, 600 odd acres, that's postage stamp size in today's farming terms.
And this yellow rattle, it's an income,
Yes.
but it's also, I know that it motivates you to do all this work, and it is a lot of a lot of faff, isn't it?
Yes.
But it motivates you in that these seeds will go somewhere around the country
Yes.
and create more habitat.
Right, so the yellow rattle itself parasitises grass roots in the same way that mistletoe will parasitise the sap in perhaps an apple or a hawthorn tree. So it's a bit sort of tongue-in-cheek that I'm doing this and selling it, but what it does is sort of compete with the grasses growing around in wildflower fields, and that gives the wildflowers a greater chance, and that's what improves the habitat when you've got the wildflowers, and the bee species can come in rather than the grasses being the dominant species. It completely changes it. So all our wildflower fields are well endowed with yellow rattle. We only harvest a little bit, and the orchids have come back, and it just shows that you reduce the fertility. You remember the farm was heavily fertilised through the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. So the fertility, the potash, phosphate and nitrates in the soil were very, very high. And that's not the recipe for good wildflower fields. But this is one of the components that helps that recipe. There we are. You've seen it all. Farmer on his hands and knees. Sometimes I'm on my bike as well. I'm in the digger bucket.
Panning for gold, and it is a gold
colour.
colour.
That is what it is. And here's the bag that's the final product is ready to go out to be sold. It's 100% pure yellow rattle. What about that? The magic has happened, and yep, there's £400 or £500 worth just in that little bag, which would nearly fit in a 1 gallon bucket. Shh, trade secret.
We're under the tree canopy here in the farmyard by the pond, and we've got lots of ducks as well, just sunbathing. Well, actually, they're sheltering from the sun, probably.
Yes, they're all in the shade, Matthew.
How are the ducklings this year?
Oh, fantastic. One of the female mallard is on her second brood. She just brought a dozen tiny little fluffy chicks to the pond. She deserted her first brood when they were about 7-8 weeks old, not even half grown, and they've thrived. They brought themselves up without a mum, and she then set about doing a second brood, and she's an incredible mum, and just amazing how nature works sometimes. Anyway, we're under some shade here in the trees, right in the middle of
in
the
amongst
farm.
a museum of farm implements.
Yes,
under here.
not a museum. Some of this is really modern, Matthew. That's a hay rake. Look at that.
Yeah, we've got JCB over there, and we've got something that could cause a nasty injury if you were run over
Yes,
by
that's
it.
that's a min seeder. That's one of the late machines, the new ones. And this is a roll that I made. It was a North Sea gas main, and that came ashore at Great Yarmouth. The main was replaced. It's 30-inch diameter steel tube, and I've made a 5-ton roll out of it.
I'll call for the heavy roller, I think.
This is a call for the heavy roller, so I'll sit on the roller. That's not going to move anywhere, and hand these over to you. And that's this week's correspondence. Amazing amount of questions.
Julia Peacock has emailed saying she's an avid listener to the podcast.
Excellent.
I'm writing to find out if you have ever witnessed similar behaviour in wood pigeons. Yesterday evening we were walking along the riverside in Ely. Wonderful place. We were under willow trees. We heard an unusual slapping noise coming from the direction of one of the trees, so looked up to see 2 wood pigeons. One stood quite tall and slapped quite hard, the other with its right wing, then the other retaliated. This went on for several minutes until one took a perch higher in the tree. I've always thought, wood pigeons were quite passive, but I'm beginning to think otherwise.
Yeah, what a wonderful observation, and it's something I've witnessed here at the farm, and I've been trying to video it for you this week. It happens so regularly, and you have close contact with wood pigeons. We've got them all around us. We're under some trees at the moment, and some have been calling whilst we were walking to this spot. Yes, so you see this lovely sort of loving behaviour when the male bows to the female, and also they will coo, they will preen each other as well. So you have that side of them. And if there are two male wood pigeons together in one of their territories that they set up loosely, they will do this behaviour with their wings. They're really strong wings. They put one wing high up in the air and use it as a weapon. It's really, really strange to see and quite violent. And so that attracted our correspondent Julia's attention, and you get this very loud slapping noise. It really is aggressive. Now, it also happens when a female and a male meet, and the female's not interested in the male, and she will then bash the male the other way round. So it is really extraordinary behaviour, and you can hear it 30, 40 yards away. It is so loud, but very, very common. So don't think that you saw anything particularly unusual. Common behaviour, but there's good and bad in the wood pigeons.
Swallows flying into one of the large barns at High Ash Farm, feeding their young. This is one of the big conservation success stories I know you're very proud of.
Just brings a huge delight. 4 youngsters just waiting for mum and dad.
The podcast aims to bring you sights and sounds like this every week, and we're very thankful of your support. So any donations or subscriptions are very welcome indeed.
All we need is a little bit of extra help. It just keeps it going from week to week.
Monthly or one-off subscriptions, whatever the size. And the website, highashfarm.com/podcast.
6 youngsters right above our head, all with their gates wide open.
And here's one from Kerry, who was tuned into the podcast last week. And Kerry says, loved the programme about kingfishers, such beautiful birds. I live on a narrow boat and have been blessed to have kingfishers fishing next to my boat in the places I've moored this past month. The kingfisher and the cormorant have figured out that boats attract fish. And there's a photo there, isn't there?
Yes.
And they've often to be found near the boats catching their next meal.
Yes, look at that. And here's the picture.
Oh,
and,
lovely colours.
There's a question. There's a beautiful shot of the kingfisher there. And the question is, how do kingfishers manage to swallow such large fish, almost as large as themselves? And she said, is it a rudd? And it's not a rudd. It's a dace, a young dace.
That little fish there?
Yes, but it's sort of 3 inches long. It's half the length of the kingfisher.
It's a marvellous photograph, because there's the kingfisher on a perch with the fish, the dace, in the
beak, and it will juggle it round until it points down head first. It's got no spines on it, so it's an easy fish to swallow, and that's an incredible observation. So they will often swallow fish much larger than you'd think they could get down into that dagger-like beak.
Well done, Kerry.
Thank you.
Now here's one from California. And John Spink. Greetings, John. I recently listened to a piece on the radio about bird deaths due to wind turbines. It said that in Norway, a wind farm had painted one of the 3 blades on all their turbines black. Apparently, this reduced bird collisions by some 70%. Can you explain this? And how come this hasn't been adopted worldwide?
Yeah, there's a lot of research going on as more and more wind turbines put up in the environment, particularly out to sea, particularly on the Norfolk coast, all the way round. I've been and sort of looked at them with binoculars, and if you paint one of the blades black or a different colour, it doesn't have to be black, you have a kind of flickering effect as the blades turn round. And the BTO, the British Trust for Ornithology, are doing lots of research on this because as wind turbines become more numerous, bird collisions, particularly for migratory species, and some of our gull species, like terns, which are quite scarce now, are suffering, and particularly after bird flu, so we want to do everything we can to protect them. But the BTO is doing lots of research to see if this painting one of the blades actually works. So you have this flicker effect, and it then just keeps the birds away. But the wind farms aren't just one turbine or 10. The one where I've been looking at out in the North Sea, out from Southwold off the coast there's several hundred turbines, and they're massive. They are 12 miles out. I talked to the local fisherman down there, and I said, oh, they're about 4 miles out. 12, he said. Yes, I said, does that affect the fishing too much? No, he said. No, but he said there's a lot of them out there. And so there we are. A lot of research being done as we speak. We're speaking of wood pigeons.
One above our head.
Right above our heads. Yeah.
Right, here's another email from Ari. Just finished listening to this week's episode, Kingfishers. Here in Minnesota, USA, I live on a lake shore, and just to the south is an eroding cliff face of glacial material in which kingfishers nest each summer. They're some of my favourite neighbours. While the US species is considerably less colourful than the British one, one of the attributes I do not believe you mentioned in the episode is how talkative they are. They have a very distinctive squawk. You always know when they're around.
Yes, but the kingfisher species in the United States is somewhat different to ours. Ours have a very high-pitched call that you normally hear when they're flying along. The young are rather different. They can sort of have a continual squawk down the end of the nest hole, which stimulates the parents to feed them. And anyway, they're different species. And I've seen down in Senegal, close to Gambia, I've seen the world's smallest kingfishers down there. They are only about 2.5 inches from tip of beak to tip of tail. They are also quite talkative, but not like our British species, which just have this high-pitched squeak.
Heather, who's in the Isle of Man, sent us a photograph last week, and Chris, you mentioned that this moth had been parasitised by a wasp.
Yes.
And Heather says, thanks for the answer, and as proof, here's a photograph showing it happening.
Yes, and she sent another picture through, and there's all these tiny wasps, and it's completely engulfed the poor kingfish. I've got kingfishers on the brain. It's completely engulfed the poor caterpillar, and the wasps are now emerging. There's 3 or 4 there in that particular shot. Quite a common thing with parasitic wasps at this time of the year.
And another one from John. A pleasure to learn about the countryside in Norfolk each week. I recall as a youngster in Leicestershire watching the seemingly suicidal tumbling displays of the green plover, the peewits, in the springtime. Sadly, the last couple of times I was back in Britain, this species seems to have totally disappeared.
Yep, and that's true. Peewits, lapwing, whatever you like to call them, have become a red list species. It's one of our faster declining UK species. Lots of marshland in the 1960s and 70s with government grants was drained for land to grow wheat on it, some of our most fertile soils in the river valley. So that was also, sadly, the habitat of these beautiful birds which will plunge at you, dive at you to get rid of you. Peewits, because of the call that they made.
There was a population near here, though, wasn't there?
There
and
was.
they've been supplanted by a solar farm.
Yes, and the solar farm is now yellow with ragwort, so I should have a word with the local electricity board about that one. But it's become a red list species, which means it's declined by 50% or more in the last 25 years. So really sad to see that. And here's a stunning picture. I've seen it on the farm computer this morning, sent to us from Caroline Skipper.
Yeah, who lives in Catfield, not far from here. Look forward every week to listening about High Ash Farm, especially last week's butterflies. I had a close encounter with a swallowtail butterfly right outside our front door. As you can see by these pictures, this swallowtail butterfly likes the self-seeded verbena by our back door.
Yes, so I had a good look at it, and you're completely right. One of our most beautiful and quite large butterflies as well. And really, you'll only see it in fenland, and particularly in your area, anywhere where there's broadland. The food plant is milk parsley, and so it will breed here. It says, do they breed here? And the answer is yes, they do. They're sometimes double brooded as well, so really well done. That's a fantastic video.
Carolyn says loves the podcast and enjoys particularly Rat's naughty adventures.
Yes, right. I can deliver him with £5 round his collar. He's so much trouble there in the farm, but he is behaving quite well this morning. He's sniffing round the edge of the duck pond. He will never go in water though. Detests it, a bit like I did at bath time when I was a child.
Emails, we love getting them. chris@highashfarm.com. And if you can help us with the running costs of the podcast, please do have a look at the website to see how to donate, whether it's a one-off or maybe a regular donation. It's highashfarm.com/podcast.
Yes. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you as well for popping out to the farm. It's always great fun. It's turning into the time of the week that I look forward to most on the farm, just to go round and enjoy what's on a really traditional Norfolk farm with a difference.
Yes. With some gold being sieved. Better let you get back to that.
Yes, you had. That's where I am for the rest of the day, in the digger bucket.